It'll be very silly. All right, there's our photo. Yay!
Hey,
And that's the book. That's the book. You know what I'm
Welcome! Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first Iambic Lab event, born of the Ensemble. The book that you just saw, that we didn't really explain, was a book that really inspired our new play development process, which is titled White People Do Not Know How to Behave at Entertainments Designed for Ladies and Gentlemen of Color. That is our current working title. And we announced this new play development project on Juneteenth of this past year. So far, we have had one in person and one virtual devising session. And then we just wrapped up a devising session today. And then now we're here gathering with you all in the interwebs to talk about this project. So we're just going to start by going down the line and introducing ourselves for those of you who may not know us. I will start. My name is Carene Mekertichyan. I am an ISC Ensemble member and the Artistic Associate for Social Justice.
I'm Sabra Williams. I am an actor in the company.
I'm Patrick Batiste, also an actor in the company.
Hi, I'm Bukola Ogunmola, and I'm also part of the Independent Shakespeare Company.
Yeah, and we have all been going on this devising journey together since January-ish, February-ish.
Oh
yeah, it's been a year. It's been a year since we
Really?
started
cool.
our first part of this devising process. And to start us all off, Sabra, if you can talk a little bit about how we came up with this current frame for what we're working on, what we've learned about the African company.
Okay. Well, one of the things I think is amazing and I really love about being with Indie Shakes is that the stage here always looks like Los Angeles. So it's a company that has always, since I've known it, has been very diverse. And after the George Floyd uprising and the BLM protests, David and Melissa, who started and co-founded this company, really wanted to support the Black actors in the company. So enabled a space for us just to meet, really, wasn't it? Like we just sort of met and
virtually
discussed and without any pressure, thinking that a play might arise out of it, but maybe not. And so we met and it was so nice to see.
I know, especially at that time.
It was so lovely a year ago. And they made sure we were paid. And we just started a discussion. And then I realized as an immigrant, clearly not from here, that I didn't know enough about the history of African-American theater in this country. So I started doing some research and discovered what many people know as the first African-American theater company in America that was called, variously it's called the African Grove, the African Company, the African Theater. Started by William Brown in 1821. And the amazing thing about it is I realized as I was reading about it, it's exactly 200 years later. So we were doing this in 2021 in, I think it was February.
Yeah, we were starting in February, and they were founded
in February,
in June-ish.
Oh, was it right?
Of
1821. So I was like, oh, no coincidence that we've discovered this at this time. So, brought it to the group and said, I don't think maybe we shouldn't do a play that is about, historically, like a documentary about this, but maybe this can inspire something. And one of the things about the African theater was that it was super, super successful, right? Super successful. It was always sold out. But the white people would come and they would heckle and throw things at the actors on stage. So they maybe were doing Richard III or Othello or something, and or a show called King Shot Away, which the script is now lost for that. And white people would be throwing things at them. So they decided in the end that they would make a pen at the back of the theater for the white people to be in to stop them disrupting the shows. And so that's where they put outside a poster that said, white people do not know how to behave. And that's where that comes from. And then, as with many Black things in America over the years, it was a victim of its own success. And the theater actually ended up being burned down and closed. And then they moved uptown next to one of the most successful white theaters. And of course, the competition was not appreciated, and that ended up being closed. So the African theater was probably best known as being the starting point for Ira Aldridge, who's watching over our shoulder right now. He joined when he was 17, and he became very famous out of that. So when we started, we thought that maybe this would inspire at the beginning of our journey, because what we noticed is that, oh my God, 200 years ago, the actors in the African theater were having the exact same conversation that we 200 years later have after we've performed at the park in Griffith Park.
Mm-hmm.
So they were saying, I'm going home now, be careful, don't go on your own, make sure that the police don't stop you. We have that same conversation after we finish the shows in Griffith Park. So we were like, how can we show the thread of 200 years ago to today? And what will it be like 200 years in the future? What do we need to change now to make sure they're not having that conversation 200 years later? So we don't really know the outcome of this, but we've started on the journey with the actors and the company of the African theater at the center. And we're not sure what's going to happen next, but it's very exciting.
Yeah. Thank you for all of that. And I also just want to add, we are monitoring the comments. So I just want to say hello to everyone who has said hi. Hi, Dan. I see you. And yes, very true, history likes repeating itself. And a lot of things, as we've seen, have not changed. Another fun fact, well, not so fun, that I think about too, is around the time when the African company had to completely shut down, they were also having financial struggles from a health epidemic. It wasn't a pandemic, but people were very sick that year as well, that we found in our material. So it's very interesting. Along that, when it comes to all of the research that we've been doing, Patrick, I wondered if you could talk a bit about things that you have found, things that are maybe difficult to find, maybe some common misconceptions about the African growth.
Yeah, I mean, we found all these books. I mean, we read this one, the title of our working title by Marvin McAllister. It's ultimately just a recount of the origin of the company. And but we were introduced to stories of freedom in Black New York by Shaun White, by a documentarian of
Camilla,
a friend of ours, who ultimately told us that this was a really great history research book as well. And it ultimately tells you about the way that they had to live, in a middle ground freedom of, slavery wasn't quite over in New York, but it was almost over. Like, they signed the bill in 1799. But we're talking about 1821, and they weren't going to be truly free until 1827. So it was like a 28-year waiting period for these people who were born before July 4th, 1799 to be free. But they knew they were going to be free. So there was all this time, but there's so much more information in this book, and about just accounts of everyday life, how hard it was to find work and to live, and really what they did on a day-to-day basis. Half the time they wanted to stay out, and hang out with their friends, just like we all do. And, so they all congregated together. Some people would, do their what is it? The strolls up, parades, and music and dance.
They're fine. Yeah.
And go to the theater, and this theater was a great outlet for people to kind of just go and just hang out, So that was a great thing that provide, a great entertainment that provided, some happiness to the Black culture of the time, in a time of complete uncertainty of your place, your lack of identity. Like they had to try to find out who they were. They're like, there were no jobs that were being allotted to them. So yeah, I mean, and things that were hard to find were the women of the company. You know, you assume that behind every what is it saying?
Behind every man, there's a woman.
Every
Great
historic
there's
great
a great
man.
woman.
There's a woman or two or more.
For sure. And I'm not going to deny it.
With where you're sitting right now, I wouldn't if I were you.
So, you know, the women, honestly, of the time weren't necessarily documented that greatly. You know, there's some reviews and playbills, but I think there's only one picture of a lady. And we don't even know her name. Do we know her name?
No.
There's one woman.
Oh, there's one who wrote a play. The play doesn't exist. But
Well, there's one woman. There are two women we know are in the company, and I think one whose name is documented.
Yes.
But other than that, it's very hard to know about the women, and then also just other people in the company that were not Ira Aldrin.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
The woman's name, we don't even know her first name, is S. Walsh. And
Was it Sarah? Does it
we
say somewhere?
we said it was Sarah.
We
It
said,
never, it
poor
does
woman,
not
she might
say,
not be Sarah.
it just says S. Walsh. And they speak about her rendition of Lady Anne. And at that time, the people of color very much gravitated towards her version of Lady Anne, whereas the white people did not because the theater was deemed illegitimate by said white people, did not agree with her portrayal of it and thought it deviating too far from the original.
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Shows
because
the
she
trend.
played it as a modern woman in modern times, as we are allowed to, because Shakespeare is for all of us.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is a lot of what we can find about the company and their productions comes from these reviews that are incredibly racist. These reviews that are talking about like, how dare they, how awful.
And also that Ira Aldridge couldn't say the part properly because his lips were too thick.
That was something that was
Yeah, that was
Shakespeare.
something that would happen to him a lot, like throughout his career. But there was, especially in New York at the time, the local publication. So that's what we're going off of. We're going off of material that's already incredibly biased and racist.
For sure. But I think they also did a great job of you know, entertaining the people of the time, which is something we should focus on. You know, like obviously there's racism and hatred, and they had to put the white people in the back, but that was just like a kind of like a, so they can understand how they are treated, you know, like,
And for safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
safety.
because they were
For
actively
safety.
throwing food at
Yeah.
us.
but
the whole before they were split up, the point of the theater was to integrate everyone and to get a taste of what this new world was going to be like, because we had this little moment of what we thought was freedom, and we were lulled into a false sense of security before it was snatched away by Jim Crow. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting that the people of color that did not cause the divide were the people trying to make the amends, and it was still being destroyed by white people who went out their way to come and destroy it. Instead, and that doesn't mean all. There were a lot of white people that would come for the entertainment, and they just enjoyed it, and they were there for the theater of it.
Very
But-
diverse audience.
Yeah, very
Which
diverse
is so
audience
interesting.
sitting together and like really just being in that moment. The very thing we love about theater, I'm speaking for all of us on this, but the very thing we love about theater is sitting in a room together with the audience and like going through it together. So there were some people that very much loved that. And then there's some people who needed this sign.
Actually, you know,
And-
it's so that what you were saying is so, for me, it's one of the really interesting thing, because there's always been this backlash. You know, this was another time, like just the beginning of the end of slavery, where, you know, Black people were able to be in positions of power. We had Black senators, Black Congress members. You know, we had at the beginning of Seneca Village, which became Central Park, you know, places where Black people could thrive. Tulsa, right? So we had places where Black people could
So
thrive,
many.
and they could do so well. And you know, just like has happened many times in American history, when Black people have power and they start to thrive, it's snuffed out, right?
Mhm.
And so this is a very interesting time. Like all those, like not all those, there was quite a few Black senators and Congress members. Black people were allowed to vote for this very short period, and then it all
During
got
Reconstruction.
taken away.
Mm.
And so one of
After.
the things that, you know, we've discovered in our research, well, haven't discovered, but we've discovered more, is that it wasn't just Seneca Village, which was taken and turned into Central Park, or Tulsa, Greenwood, that were burned to the ground. There are at least dozens, if not hundreds of places where Black people could be safe and thrive that were destroyed. And so one of the things we're thinking that's important with this play is that we're not here to educate people, right? But we can offer, for instance, if we have all the names of those places on the walls around the theater, but we're not saying this is what happened, then you have to go find out, why do they have those names? What does that mean? What does that mean? And that's what we're hoping, is that this isn't a documentary, but the power of the arts is to awaken curiosity. And we hope that people will be curious when they come and see what we're doing, which we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, and it's happened and continues to happen. And I know we might have touched on this earlier, but one of the things that comes out in a lot of the research that we've been doing is the fact that there was this rival company in New York that didn't like to see the success of the African company. And it was a white-run, white theater company. And they didn't like that there was this company of Black people that thought they could do Shakespeare. And they did everything they could to stop them, and eventually, unfortunately, they did. So it's and again, I'm looking at the chat, loving all of these comments. There was a question about why they liked from Scott why they liked Sarah or S is Lady Anne, and you already answered that. And my dad was saying that things should have been thrown back at them that are heavy like a piano. Thanks for that, Dad.
Thanks,
Nice.
David.
Yes, Dad, for sure.
Yeah, yes. Cool. So moving along those lines, we already started talking a little bit about ideas that we had for our production, and we have been working and started to sketch things out and frame things, and have started writing. Bukola, I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about our current framework, where we're at with our production, what's happening, because the people want to know.
We want to know. I would like to know.
Kelvin is invested.
Hi, Kelvin. Kelvin is very invested.
Kelvin
Hello,
can't
Kelvin.
wait to see Kelvin.
So where we are right now, we're still in the early in the devising process, but we're very excited. We obviously have been doing a lot of research and watching and reading and talking to some very lovely experts who have shared their time so graciously with us. Right now, we're thinking of having 2 different acts. So like a 2-act play, and part of it being in a time period very close to this one, and part of it being maybe set a little bit in the past. I am not giving you any hard hard
We
descriptions.
can't tell you everything.
We can't tell you
Wait,
everything.
Our second act will be in the past or the future?
We
No,
can't
no.
tell you
We can't
everything.
tell you everything, but we will be touching on what it means to be Black in America, as a Black American, as well as being a Black artist and actor and theater maker in America, then, now, and in the future.
There you go.
And seeing where those lines diverge, and are we having separate conversations, and what do we need to do now to make sure that these conversations are not something that's just being repeated over and over and over again. So that's what we're working on, and we will be bringing a lot of ourselves to it. I think that, leave a little sprinkle on that, but yes, we will be bringing a lot of ourselves to it, and a lot of conversations that we've had amongst each other and with our colleagues and with our friends and with our families into this mix, because we are an what's that word? Amalgam of all of our experiences and the people that are around us and everything. So we will be bringing that to the stage, and we are very excited.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And one comment that I see that I really want to highlight from Vincent. Hey, Vincent.
Hi, Vincent.
Is Vincent is saying, I'm so excited for this project. Like Sabra said, people need to do their own work, and sparking their curiosity is amazing. And I think that speaks to a big conversation that we've had a lot,
Yes.
especially with theater, especially with Black theater. We've talked a lot about the balance between like, who is this for? Whose gaze is this for? What is the purpose of this work? A lot of times certain works can fall into like Black trauma porn, which we've talked about, not wanting to get into that, and making sure that there is a lot of space for joy. But also, yes, sparking that in people so they're curious and they do their own work, and then they think about their own communities and ways that you can serve your own community. So that's definitely
Yeah, and
something
one of the
that's
things that we were talking about today that I think is really important as an immigrant is setting America in a world context, because one of the reasons that we are able to continue down the path we've been continuing on for 200 years is because of this American exceptionalism and America, like the insular nature of American culture, that it enables segregation to continue and no decent world news. And so it's very hard to understand American history in the context of the world. So when you think about, Ira Aldridge going to Russia, I was like, why did he want to go to Russia in the 1820s? Why did he want to go to Germany, to London, where he ended up? Like, why Russia? And finding out that Black people have been going to Russia since the 1700s because of, at that time, the way that they were treated was, they didn't have to be, their whole life didn't have to be about race, and they were able to be successful and well paid, at that time in Russia. And so just, what does it mean that, this repetition of every 200 years or more in America of like pushing forward, you could talk about Obama, first Black president, and then the Blacklash that came after that, this constant rhythm. How is that in the context of world history? And also we were saying it's like super important for Americans to be able to break this American exceptionalism. So we hope that in some way we can include this context of the world, not just of America.
Yeah. And comment. Oh, we were talking about this today, Dad. My dad was saying, yes, Sabra representing all of us immigrants, and he said Pushkin was part Black, which we talked about Pushkin today. Yes, and all of the, like, we were talking about Josephine Baker earlier, and the Black artists who just could not work in the United States that they wanted to, or get the respect or the pay that they wanted to, so they went to France, and in the 1920s and all of that. And yes, to the importance of having a worldview and looking at the way that America interacts in other spaces and globally is very important. And that speaks to as well us bringing our own backgrounds, right? Yeah. Whether it's being an immigrant, whether it's being mixed race, and my mixed race identity being Black and Armenian, we are bringing a lot of ourselves to this piece and how we are interrogating these topics. So I'm really enjoying all of that. And I just want to let you all know we are going to be answering questions at the end, and we are very much nearing the end. So if you have questions at the end of this, we're holding a lot of space for our questions. So please pop those in the chat, whether you are joining us on YouTube and Facebook. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe. We need some more subscribers. So subscribe, tell everyone you know to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And it might be helpful just to say about a timeline in terms of when they could come and watch something.
Yes, there is more to discuss. Possible. Yes. So the next thing that I want to talk about first is just what this devising process has been like, which has been very special for me because I've never had a a process like this in theater. We've very much been centered on making sure that we are decolonizing the devising process. And I know we are always getting questions from people in our ensemble and our company, like, how are things going, and what is the timeline? And we do have a timeline, and it has happened over an extended period of time, especially during these unprecedented times of COVID. We started all of these discussions virtually, and we're able to have our first in-person devising sessions back in the fall, and now we're finally back. But it has been so great to have the space to create and to let things sit and marinate and to consume all of these materials and to sort of be dramaturgs as well in this piece, because it is something that is very much born of the ensemble. And I just love the way that so much is sparked from just conversations that we've had, and the way that this piece is structured is going to be a very unconventional play. It will be more than likely unlike anything you've seen, probably unlike anything that you have seen from the Independent Shakespeare Company, which is something that I found really exciting and freeing about this process. Oftentimes when something is commissioned, you're given a very short window of time, and it's all about deliverables and end product. And I've loved that this has been so much about the actual art making and bringing ourselves into the piece and making sure that we're doing it in a way that's also honoring our well-being, because a lot of this work and a lot of the things that we're talking about can, because we're putting so much of ourselves into it, can bring up a lot of emotions and trauma. So that's one of the things I've really appreciated about decolonizing this process. Does anyone else have anything to add just about what devising has been like before we wrap up?
Yeah, devising for me is just being able to read about stuff that I haven't read before, and being surprised as a lifelong theater performer, and ultimate historian, which makes you a historian. Like, I didn't know about the first African company. That wasn't taught to us as a Black actor in theater arts class. So that's kind of confusing, but also like happy that I got to do this research. And I don't know, I'm super excited to just get more information into my mind and try to find as much happiness in their work as I can, so that I can share it with everyone and just to tell the story the way that we each can tell it from our perspectives. Brent's not here, but he has a very powerful perspective, and we all have been putting in a lot of Aisha putting in a lot of our heart and minds together. So it's been good to work with my peeps from ISC and to learn more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would say also, I feel so connected to those actors in 1821. I don't know why. I wasn't even born here, but I feel, I mean, William Brown was also Caribbean, Caribbean. But I feel like I really, really want to respect their lives, especially the women, because we don't hear about them. So I feel like we're carrying this precious connection to these ancestors. And I really want to honor their lives. And then something that I've discovered doing this, which is always so helpful as an artist, is that how differently we all work. I realize that I'm so physical, as a dancer, I need to be on my feet playing, and then somebody else might be more cerebral, like somebody else might prefer to read or to talk or to write, it's just, to me, it's very interesting always how everybody's different approaches can come together as a whole and create something greater than the sum of our parts. So yeah, exciting.
Yeah, I've greater than the sum of our parts. I've also felt that so much when working with everyone here, because we don't all think the same. We don't have the same background. We don't, we bring so many different things to the table. And after, a while being on your own and kind of dealing with your own demons, coming back to the general public and kind of looking at the world as a whole with all these different perspectives coming forward has really opened my mind, just being able to listen to, we read the same passages and we get different information and we retain different information. And it's been an experience unlike any other. And I think that during this time of being apart from people and then coming back to it, I appreciate the salon-ness of it, of us sitting down and really just being free to express ourselves and to have different opinions and to not try to convince each other that you are right, but to empathize and see from each other's point of views so that we can be better people of the world and not just individuals walking around. So it's been really, really fantastic being with you amazing group of people.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to David and Melissa for supporting this this in the best way possible. As they are two white people, but they have not interceded in any way.
Just holding space for
Yes.
us.
That's other companies need to learn from them.
And paying.
Please.
Paying us and being like, okay,
I'm not putting any pressure on us for there to be any outcome. Maybe there's no play at the end of it. I mean, that is something special.
The play's going to happen.
There will. There's definitely a play. There's absolutely.
This play is actually about to be dope.
But I will say, at our very, very, very initial stage, one of the things that I remember talking about with Melissa was I had come up with this entire outline and way that we would sketch things out and have a script ready in 2 months. And Melissa was like, Carene, y'all need to do all that. She was like, listen, just kind of let it be open, talk, see where things go. If at the end of this process, you're like, nah, I don't know what can happen. If at the end of this process, you're like, that whole process was a wash. We need more time to just figure out everything that we've done has been very integral to where we're at right now. But she was completely open to that. And that was the most freeing thing. And I've never experienced that as a theater art maker in my life up until that point, ever.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes, I will get there. So it is. So we're gonna get to the questions in a second. Before we get there, I just wanted to wrap up and to let you all know what our current timeline is. So right now we just had a full day of devising, and now we're here with you all. We stayed at the ISC studio to have our nice little talk with you.
Now.
We live here. We are moving into our next intensive phase in mid-March. And then after that, we will essentially have a sort of full script, rough draft outline of what the piece is. We've already begun the writing process. And then between March and July-ish, that's when we are going to finalize our script for our workshop production, which is going to be happening in the fall of 2022. So get ready because it will happen in the fall of 2022. And we are really...
Something will happen for sure.
This workshop production is going to happen in fall of 2022, and we're very excited to share that with you all. Please keep putting in your questions in the chat. I've already seen some things pop up. Before I get to our first question from Nikhil, I just want to read a few really nice things that are in the chat.
Aww.
Vincent is saying, what makes these humans so amazing and powerful as performers is that they come from such a place of truth and humanity. It's such a powerful thing. Nice. Thank you, Vincent. And Scott, we love you, Scott. Scott is saying, you all are making me just so proud to be an ISC supporter. Aww. Bravos to David and Melissa. All good things. Some hearts from Jenny. We love you, Jenny. Jenny Paul gave us some treats today.
So you didn't put any hot Cheetos in there, Jenny?
Gave me a
Brent said he wants some more
mom.
chips. He'll Venmo you.
Yeah,
Brent is going to Venmo you. We talked about
need some of those truffle chips.
Cool. So now getting into our first question, which is really awesome from Nikhil. We love you, Nikhil. Everyone I'm sure knows Nikhil, is asking if we can give, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, can we give everyone a hint as to what our devising prompts were? So what were some of the big questions? There's a few. I know right off of the top of my head, one of the big things that we talked about is what does it mean to be an American?
Oh, yeah.
what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be a Black American? And there's a lot that came from that
Yeah, that's
conversation.
true.
So that's the first thing that sparks for me. Any other
I think that-
prompts?
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
I got my notebook over there. I should get it.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So I was like, "Where's my book?"
Yeah,
we had a lot of we had a lot of
all
like,
the notes are
free
here.
writing things. So go ahead, Sabra.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that for me, it's I'm always interested in thinking about far enough away that I know I'll be less than dust. Like what we do today that's going to affect, that's why we were like 200 years in the future is a place that we haven't really gone deep into yet. We've done the past and the present. But I'm really interested to follow that question more. 200 years in the future, what is it going to be like? Because when you think about that, you know, people are often thinking like, we'll be living on Mars. But that's what they thought was going to be happening today, 200 years
Where's
ago.
my flying car?
Very
200
true.
year is not very long. It's not a long period. And we're still dealing with the same issues as they were dealing with 200 years ago. So I'm interested in that question.
There was a bunch of questions we asked ourselves. It was, whose story can you tell?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whose story needs to be told? How do you tell stories? I mean, these are basic questions, but they got us to places that
Yeah.
that ultimately became real conversations. As theater artists, why do we do what we do? Lots of questions that told me, we found the stories that need to be told in the origins of Black theater.
And I think I saw one that said, who is America for? That's another question that we were.
With.
Yeah.
I
I know
remember
when we were first meeting up virtually, because we weren't sharing space, a lot of it was just kind of thinking about, because I really didn't know where to start. And then I had an idea of where to start. And then Melissa was like, just keep it open. And I was like, okay. So then I thought of those general questions. I was like, okay, we're storytellers. We should think about why we're doing this and who we're doing this for, which is something that comes up a lot. So that's where those questions came from. And a lot of fruitful discussion came from that, because I knew that we wanted to put ourselves into the piece. So it would be good to talk about, like, why is it we do what we do as performers, as storytellers? What story is it that we want to tell, and why are we telling it at this time? Because for me as an artist, I'm always trying to be very intentional about if I'm as an actor, the projects that I'm doing, why am I doing this? Why is this piece relevant? Why is this relevant to the audience that it's reaching? And then as a writer, why am I writing this right now? What is the purpose of this? That's what I'm always thinking about. So that's where those came from.
Yeah, and we also talked quite a lot about how Black people speak when they're on, when we're on our own.
Switching.
Yeah, and then what would it mean to share some of how we speak for real? Like, you know, like what we're talking about. And so we've had a couple of ideas about maybe how to do that will be a surprise, but
Surprise for the audience.
you know,
Surprise.
there will be things that you may not have seen before in a theater
that
piece.
you have not experienced.
Yeah. And one that really stuck out to me was what do we need to do now for the future,
so
and
that we're
like,
not having the same problems 200 years from now.
that
Yeah,
I just wanted to
same
repeat that and put that
conversation.
out there, because it was one of those questions that it brought up the question, what could they have done to make it better for us now? And they did all they could do with the little that they had in the circumstances that they were in. So, you know, it was interesting to watch the little sliver of time of, you know, false freedom kind of repeat itself during the Obama era, pre-Trump, you know. But it's just,
I'll always be there.
yeah. So like it's very interesting to like see the reflection of those two times, and we were talking about it earlier, and Sabra brought it up, and it was very So that was another one.
And I think also, you know, we talked today about the inseparability of, you know, the American system. So I work in prisons, and Carene works in prisons, and so does Bukola. And just, you know, really understanding that you can't talk about this without talking about mass incarceration and the so-called justice system, and because they're so interconnected. That exact conversation that we're having, that they used to have, of watch out, don't get stopped by the police, is the same conversation they were having. And it's all tied up in this American idea of freedom, what freedom is and what justice is. And we talked about the very real thing of the Constitution of this country that people pledge allegiance to contains within it that people who are incarcerated can still be enslaved in the 13th Amendment. To this day, can still be enslaved. And so, when we talk about what does it mean to be an American, we're talking about all people, including my folks who are incarcerated.
That's right.
What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to have a constitution that enables you to be enslaved because of where you are in
the
prison?
circumstances of your life.
So we have to find, in fact, people who've been incarcerated will be part of this process. Well, one person in particular will be part of this
and
process.
will be, on
We'll
our
be
mind
entitled
throughout
to it,
everything that we are doing. And the link that I plopped down there on the screen is a link where you can also learn more about this piece, and you can donate to this piece
Please
because theater making needs money. So
Also, everybody,
please donate.
remember when you were all doing black squares on your Instagram and swearing BLM? This is ways to support Black people, Black artists, Black processes. So please do support.
That's our normal ISC website, iscla.org/LGC, ladies and gentlemen of color.
Thank you for your question, Nikhil.
Yes,
Thanks,
Nikhil,
Nikhil.
that was awesome. Thank you. So we have another question that I want to, and I'm going to, because I remembered I knew I'm going to pop it up, from Kelvin. Hey, Kelvin. Kelvin is wondering.
That's cool. You can pop it on.
I know.
I just got a picture of Calvin.
I know. Oh, we love Kelvin. So Kelvin says, I'm wondering if y'all have been or have any plans to implement physical theater techniques in our devising process.
Who you're talking to, Calvin.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can speak to that. We've definitely already done some things, did some viewpoints.
Yeah.
Anything else?
As
We
big.
are,
We
yeah.
are
You
going to
you know,
implement
well,
more.
Kelvin knows us, but Sabra said earlier, we art differently and we process differently. I'm one of the people that wants to sit and listen to everybody talk and kumbaya in the corner, and Sabra's like, let's get up and move. So we want to bring our fullest self. So we're gonna have all those pieces. We're gonna have those moments of sitting and talking and discussing and bouncing back and forth, but we'll also have those moments of moving around and physicalizing some stuff. I had to be like,
And that'll definitely be part of, we've already talked about ways that we are going to do this in our next phase as well. But doing viewpoints opened up.
And just
a
in
lot
case you
for
don't know
us.
what viewpoints
Yeah.
is, viewpoints is, I guess it was codified by Anne Bogart and Tina Landau from a choreographer. And it's a way to make theater and to create ensemble in a very fast, physical way. I use it a lot inside prison too. And it's a way to get out of our heads, right, and into our bodies. And the things that come up, the ways that you can devise physically when you're doing this viewpoints training is, to me, super exciting. So we did a great viewpoint session a while ago.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll do some more. And then also other ways to release ideas and to create. For instance, I like to have something on the wall, a big piece of butcher paper and some paints or some, something to make colors with. And, we can have it every day that we're rehearsing and add to it and create a piece of art. So there's every opportunity, and this has been my training inside prison and with my organization, Creative Acts, is to find lots and lots of open doors to open into the process. So whether it's writing or physicalizing or making art, drawn art together, or music, Patrick, and you're also a musician, what are the ways into this story, into this river of history that already exists? How can we access it in the ways that everybody can do their best work in? So.
Yeah. Great question.
Good question,
Elvin.
twin.
That's right. So we have another question from Scott, who is saying it might be too early to ask this, but yeah. But do you think that going through this experience has changed how you'll approach acting Shakespeare in the future?
Good.
That's a really good question. And I'm like, and we have talked today, we were just talking about putting elements of Shakespearean text in our piece. So that is a very good question.
From my perspective is, you know, at the start of this book, you know, the Richard III that this company first produced was so groundbreaking at the time for the Black people that were watching, because they were like, this technically to them in America, it felt like Shakespeare was a step away from their language. And it felt like a higher level of art that, you know, slaves didn't necessarily have access to. So the fact that these born slaves who bought themselves out of slavery to be free were able to put on Shakespeare was like, you know, they were like, let's go. Richard III, we can relate to this type of broken character. And that's kind of how they felt about it. And I don't know, me growing up, I was more of a singer, more of a mover, and didn't really get into Shakespeare really until Melissa Charlesman gave me an opportunity. So I had to learn how to do it, honestly. And so I'm just constantly learning and trying to get better, me personally. But yeah, I'll definitely look at this in a particular light, to just try to master it as best as I can. I mean, and always ask questions and just get better. I mean, but the fact that they felt this was such a groundbreaking thing to do Richard III, to do the Lady Anne, it was something that they never even thought was possible. So yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah. And I want to add also that Scott added acting Shakespeare are also just acting.
Yeah, I hope. What my hope is that it changes the way I act Shakespeare or not Shakespeare, all the things, and so and you know, just to know, and like, you know, in like, yes, of course, somebody had to do a lot, like a lot of our ancestors had to do a lot to get me where I am today. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But to like know details and facts and like know that they were out here unapologetically Black is so. I don't know yet. I haven't been put in a situation. I hope that that's how I was conducting myself before. But if I am not, and I do believe that I was. That's how I conducted myself before. But you know, there's been such a shift in my awareness in the last 3 years, and there's been a shift in me and having to again be alone and face my demons. That okay. No, but for me it was a good time to examine some of my behaviors and how I interact with the world and how the world interacts with me. And now coming a little bit back into the world and seeing what that looks like and making sure that that is translated into my art, I think is important. I think it's my job.
Yeah.
I would. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll go.
Okay. I was going to just say that I always hope to be changed. That's why I keep doing it. But the thing I think that changed me the most was, again, being with Indie Shakes in the park, doing Titus was the first play that I did with Independent Shakespeare, and having people that I know who were incarcerated, who are one step out of prison, they're still considered incarcerated, but in a reentry home, being able to have them come on a bus to come and see the show. So in a way, for me, it was super moving because for so many years, we've held the space for them to play. And then they came and they helped build the stage. And then they helped hold the space for us to play. That was one of the most amazing, life-changing things for me. And then I was also like, well, they understand it. They've never been to a play before. And 99% of them have never, ever been in a theater or a museum or anything like that, which is mind-blowing to me. And so to have them sitting there
front.
in the front on a carpet, on a towel,
Yeah.
with like, and these guys are still incarcerated, and to have them watch, particularly me, who they know very well inside, play, and the fact that they could understand all of it and they felt it was theirs, they felt ownership.
They
of
were
it.
in that.
I remember
So-
that night. It was electric. It was
I remember
amazing.
when they came to see, I think, 12
ridiculous.
nights.
Oh my
Apparently,
God.
they
Yeah.
were
I remember
and
David
talking to them
slapped me.
after.
He slapped
He
you.
slapped me in the scene. He was my father. It was
Oh.
Titus Andronicus. I was his son Andronicus. My
One
name.
Andronicus.
Anyway, yeah.
Andronicus Jr.
He slapped me, and it was like a real slap. And they were like, "Oh, let's go."
And when I got my throat cut,
Yeah.
blood went everywhere. They're like, "There goes Sabra," and they're like, really like. And to me, that changed me, because I was like, "This is for everybody,
Yeah.
even the."
Uh-huh.
And everyone can understand it because of the way Indy does Shakespeare. It's not all like, highfalutin,
Yeah.
only for rich white people. And they really felt it. That to me made me think, this is for everyone. And so even more of a privilege that I get to say these words, and even more of a responsibility, because it means something to somebody who's been incarcerated, for 20, 30 years, and never been to the theater, and come and see something that can change the way they look at the world. So everything good I've learned as a person, as an actor, has come from being in prison. So yeah, and I long to be changed by everything I do as an artist. Long
Yeah.
answer.
And I've just been highlighting a bunch of people who know about that night. Carrie, Jenny, Carissa, who are just affirming how
Yeah.
incredible that night was. And I think, again, that speaks to what ISC and what accessible theater can really accomplish. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
that's been affirmed for me when thinking about the African company, because oftentimes certain things do come up. There are some people who, have said things about people of color, Black people specifically, doing Shakespeare or tackling these texts, or if we are allowed to have ownership of this. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier is this is ours too. And it's been ours, and we can have that ownership of these texts. And I think and Marie says, well, I remember that night, so moving. I think one of the things that I will definitely be taking away from this process, not so much as an actor yet, because we're going to get into that too, but as an art maker and writer and deviser, this has completely shifted the way that I think a new play development process can work in theater making. I have never been part of a process like this, where we have really truly had the space to create something that is entirely born of us, without all of the added pressure of certain expectations from people who are outside of this collective. And that's something that I have never experienced. It's been really beautiful. And that I'm going to take with me in all of the future art I make, just ways that we can hold more space for each other, and decolonize what we're doing.
I'm definitely going to take more ownership of everything that I do. I feel like we have to, devising something, we have to take ownership of it. And I think prior shows that I've done, I might have just been an actor, coming in, knowing my lines, just tell me where to do, I'm going to sing my song. Now I definitely feel like a very great energy to I don't know, to just dive deeper, go harder. I mean, I've been going hard, but I'm just going to go harder in the ownership aspect of the character that you take in.
Yeah.
And that's something that made me think also personally, is that William Brown was an immigrant too. He was from the Caribbean, like my family, right? So, I got into a conversation the other day where I've been told to go back where I came from quite a few times. But this person was like, hey, you're an immigrant, so you come to this country and you try and make it like, I was talking about universal healthcare, trying to make it like a country that you left to come here. If you don't like it, go back there. And it made me think, obviously we know that immigrants built this country, because everybody's an immigrant unless you're Native American. But, just thinking about, he came here and he did something that made the country better. And I hope that I can do something, or have done something, or could possibly do something that could make this country better too. And to me, that is part of answering, what does it mean to be an American?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it means I have to repay my debt of gratitude to this country by making it closer to what it says it is, and has never been yet.
Has never ever been.
You won't repeat that
But
for the people in the
the
back.
the ideas of what America says it is and is not. Great. Well, we don't have any more questions right now. If you do have any last minute questions, pop those in the chat. I want to just remind you all, because Iambic Lab is going to be continuing on. Our next event is going to be next Friday, February 25th at 7 p.m. And that is a salon on Shakespeare on Screen. We will be having David, Nikhil, Javi, and William, who is our DP.
William, amazing.
On Live at the Porpentine. And y'all register for Live at the Porpentine if you have not registered yet. Those streamings begin on March 11th. So, and again, it's free.
Yes.
This is all free. So
Yes.
tell people.
Wow.
And if they say, oh, it's too much, it's free.
It's too much.
It's free. And it's virtual.
Yes.
So it's like you can just be in your bed.
Yes.
And
And
I hope that you'll dress up to come.
Yes.
To
But also, yes, it is like a world premiere.
yes,
So like dress up,
take
for us.
pictures,
Please.
tag us. Make sure on
Yes, tag
YouTube
us.
you like, subscribe, comment. It really does
Please.
help us out. Make sure you drag all your friends to YouTube to like, subscribe, and comment. Check out
More things coming on
ISCL.
YouTube.
Yes,
Like big
things on
things.
YouTube. Check out the Instagram. Check out the website, and please donate.
Mhm.
Donate if you can do.
Yes. And then, and we have one more question, but before we get to the last question, and I saw Luis, I saw you
Hi,
in
Luis.
the chat.
Oh, I can't wait for
Luis
yours.
is actually going to be leading 2 different workshops, creative playwriting workshops that are going to be happening
Oh, we should go to that.
February. Yeah, no, we
We are.
Wait, in person?
no.
Oh,
He's
So
in
everyone is
text.
invited.
So no,
Everyone is
but,
invited
um,
online.
anyone can register for that, and that will be February 26th and 27th, so next Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m., 2 to 5 p.m. And then
PST.
there will also be a streaming of Louise's piece Cosmic Hood, which is
Yes.
very awesome that we are able to stream that piece. So definitely register for all of these incredible Iambic Lab events. This is our first one today. So now, before we finish, and yes, donate. Donate to IC. See Vincent's like, donate. Make sure we can, have Shakespeare set free. Like, I mean, get all the swag.
Really,
that
honestly,
we
your
have to.
donations enabled us to be able to bring people who
They
were
really did.
incarcerated to come see a show. So that beautiful moment happened because you donated,
Yeah.
because they were able to come for free.
Yeah, and that's why we are able to not only pay, our artists and creatives, but to also provide theater, especially in the summer, for 40,000 Angelinos
Yeah.
for free. Usually when it's not, COVID times, when we can have our normal summer Shakespeare festival. So yes, and Marisa said, let me highlight this. Free is what we do. Tell your friends to join everything we're doing. Honestly, it's free. It's free.
Yes.
So our last question that we have is from Vincent, and he's asking, do you find that workshopping this project gives you a stronger sense of vulnerability along with the empowerment of telling your stories? So our stories. Ooh, Vincent.
Vincent.
Yes.
That's good
Great
right there.
question. Great last question.
Does it give you more vulnerability and
More, so I
Empowerment.
think vulnerability, but also empowerment when it comes to telling our own stories, because we are putting so much of ourselves in this piece.
well, with the viewpoint exercise that we did,
Mm.
movements, free movement, unapologetic movement really shows like who you are. And that is the most vulnerable thing that we've done. Outside of talking about very serious topics, but I think the most vulnerable is when you are not thinking about your next move. And the movement works that Sabra was putting us through.
Not putting us through, inviting us to
Making us work.
I love how we're like inviting
us to do that. That was the most vulnerable thing, because you kind of have to be free moving. And what else?
It's true, you can't hide. Yeah.
Yeah.
And along with the empowerment of telling your stories.
Yeah, so like
Yeah, just
vulnerability, but
movement
also
is
empowering you to share your.
Yeah, for sure.
It has been, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's been difficult to both physically and mentally be vulnerable at the same time, especially when I go through the world and I can't be, because survival. And we all do it. We all do it to survive. But, there's a little added, oomph when you're a person of color. And to get into a room with other people of color and have to strip off all these things and kind of take off the guards that you have up, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And again, I appreciate this process because we give ourselves time to come into the room and make the choice to be here.
Yeah.
And really decide to be like, okay, I'm going to take this one thing off. And maybe in the midst of a conversation, we're like, oh, I didn't realize I had this other thing on. I'm going to put this down, and have everyone in the room gather around you and support you and be like, yes, put it down. You don't need that right now.
Yeah.
So it's been difficult to do both at the same time. And sometimes, a lot of times, very often I've failed at doing one and the other, being physically and emotionally and, mentally vulnerable in that sense. But it's been great to feel supported, whether I am at peak openness or if I'm just trying to peek through my little chink in the wall. So
yeah, I think for me, if I didn't have this collective of people that I love very much, and Brent and Aisha who aren't here, it would have been different. It would have taken a lot more to be that vulnerable that quickly with a lot of the things that we've discussed, and definitely during that viewpoint session. I think because we, as a collective, our ensemble is already very close. Like, we're all people who like are close outside of this, outside of ISC, and we all love each other very much. So we knew that no matter what we were talking through, no matter what we were bringing in with us, and that baggage and everything that's happening in the world and in our spirits and that we're dealing with, we knew that, like, I knew, oh, y'all got me. Like, everyone here, like, we have each other's backs, and we're holding space for whatever it is we're bringing in. And it's like, listen, you share as much as you want or as little as you want, or just, have your moment, and just like, maybe I don't need to participate in this, or I'm just going to listen for this moment, or I need to take a break. It's been really great to have a space and an ensemble that's already so close and already had that foundation. Because I think we all did Pericles together. Like, and we like, that's where we really had built it up. And I remember when we were doing viewpoints, one of the things that Aisha said was about like, wow, like I haven't like felt this since when we were doing Pericles, like this sort of creative flow and this love and this sense of ensemble. So for me, if I didn't have these people, it wouldn't have even been that easy to just like give into the trust.
Yeah, I would say that I don't really get empowerment from telling my stories. I get empowerment from the ensemble. Like, I feel like that makes me feel powerful. Yeah. I feel like the more I go on in my life, the more I realize I'm not great on my own. And I don't mean that I can be on my own, but I'm like, it doesn't feel powerful. It's like not, the enjoyable bit is being in community for me. So I feel like that's where I get my empowerment, not from telling my story. In a way, I'm kind of bored with my story, telling my story. But I think
Or you're empowered to tell your story.
Oh yeah, empowered to tell my story by the ensemble. But I do. Did you say she met Prince?
Yeah, you're like, I'm bored by my story.
Well,
like, hang out with Prince. What are
If you're
talking
ever in a
about?
conversation,
She
with
was
her,
in many.
As for
Mission
her
Impossible.
as for
What
her
are you talking
Prince,
about?
she's had a life. As for
Anyway.
her Prince story, she's also a celebrity in the
Oh my
UK.
God. Anyway, the vulnerable thing is interesting to me because I think I used to be afraid to feel vulnerable, but I've had 15 years of being vulnerable in the most dangerous space in terms of like, and not dangerous in terms of physical danger, but dangerous in terms of the stakes are very high to be vulnerable in prison. And I feel like that has trained me to be courageous and to try and fail. And as a result, I love failure. I love trying and failing publicly. And I think that I'm no longer afraid to be vulnerable. And that to me has made me a better actor because I'm like, yeah, I can be. And I tell people quite often if they want me to do something, like I might be shit. I might really be terrible because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do this. And the only way I know how to do it is through this, through, the ensemble. So that's why I could never do a one-person show. I wouldn't know how to do it.
That's different.
And it's interesting because Sabra is, in the beginning of Quarantina, they were like, check on your extroverted friends. Sabra's the friend you have to check on.
That's so true.
Where are my people? I've got all my son's soft toys around talking to them. When he was little, I'm all like, hi, Teddy.
Oh
The only
my
person who
God.
loves me.
Creating a whole
And then I
story,
take
a whole
I
soap
take the whole
opera.
of the collected works and I'm like bottom. I play every part in all of the plays on my own. That's what I did during quarantine.
I very
Batum.
much believe
No, you
it.
too.
Yeah.
But too.
Close up a tune.
Nicholas Batum.
And we have I've been putting just a few messages of love. We have some love from
Little
here.
Melissa.
Melissa.
Hey girl, how you
Melissa.
doing? Your
And
husband's right
David,
there.
who's
David's
David-
hiding
David's
behind
hiding
the
in the
camera.
back.
waving at us. Well, thank you all for joining us. I know we went a little over an hour, but I think it was a very great discussion.
I wish you were here with us.
Yes, we're hopefully getting to the place where we can be around more people again. Please, again, make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to us. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching us on Facebook, just pop on over to YouTube and subscribe. Please subscribe. Again, look out for those events for the rest of Iambic Lab. You can find those on icla.org. And I'm also just going to really quickly drop that link again for our project. So you can learn a little bit more about our project and you can also donate specifically to this project if you
Donate to the Black people.
$1, $5, or 500.
5,000.
5,000.
500. Yeah, it is like more. 5,000. 50,000.
No amount is too
Let's
small
go on a tour. All the things.
or too big.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone.
No, you're not gonna shake my hand.
We'll wave. Goodbye. We'll end.
Okay, bye.
All
And
good.